Blessed be, or blessed believe, as I like to say. My name is Mo Kimberly McCarty, Mo Kimberly Wunderlist McCarty. I want to talk about Wicca in a different way from what people normally think of it, or maybe some people do normally think of this, but Wicca gaining from research. And one of the, well, maybe two of the big fields of research that Wicca can definitely really gain from, and I've really gained in my practices from these two fields of research, are psychology and physics. One of the things about being a Wiccan, and also, by the way, about being someone who has schizoaffective disorder, my perceptions may be called into question. If I say I talk to a fairy, or an extraterrestrial being, or a spirit of my ancestor, in our society that's not really, I mean, some people are going to be afraid, and good for them, but a lot of people are just going to be like, and that can be kind of disheartening, and especially for me because I've been locked in mental institutions, unfortunately, and it can be something that you really start to question, like you have those doubts that creep in. Faith is kind of a difficult thing. I don't know if many Wiccans really think of their religion as a faith per se. I mean, a lot of the authors I read say, well, the results prove themselves. If you're a Wiccan, you cast a spell and the result is there, and you know you did it right, and you got what you wanted. But it doesn't necessarily end there, because it's one of those things like, maybe there's always an alternate explanation, a more rational one, that there's a coincidence that happened. Well, then there's people like Carl Jung back in the day, who most Wiccans probably know of because they quote so much in our books, and he said that, well, there's such a thing as synchronicity, and there's meaning in coincidences, and he's of course not the first person to say that, and of course he's on to something. But when, say, someone casts a spell for money, and then the money usually, I don't think, just appears after they cast the spell in their circle in an envelope saying, from the goddess, here you go. It doesn't usually happen like that. Usually it happens in something that we are willing to take a rational explanation for, just in case. It's kind of like a security blanket. The money will appear in the mail or something, or we'll find it on the street a couple days later, or we'll just happen to get a promotion or something and a raise. And it's like these things, they kind of say like, you can believe that you cast this spell and your will was manifest, but you don't have to go crazy. You can be a normal person and it just happened by coincidence, if that's what you like. And it's one of those things. Another word for synchronicity is whispers of the universe. I really like. I read that in Silver Ravenwolf's great books on Wicca, and these are a couple things I want to talk about. For one thing, giving credit to the authors and resources we use to build our theories and ideas on. You know, it's academic honesty, and like I think I said it, getting to the point that I was making, questioning my perceptions and stuff, kind of has driven me to really go into something that's a little more research driven, and I'm like halfway through a bachelor's degree in psychology, and the thing about it is, it's not like Freud saying that I believe this, I believe that. If you have hysteria, it's because you didn't get potty trained the right way, and that's what I understand because I'm so smart. It's more like, yeah, nowadays it's really interesting things people might say, but if there's no research to back it up, and Freud, for example, there isn't so much ways to research his theories on development. So it's kind of like, okay, but where's the research? Show me the research. What does the research say? And that's a very good thing, and it's also something that gives me a sense of security in my belief system. And people really wouldn't think so, and probably a lot of the people I go to school with, and a lot of people that graduate school, kind of brush things, their research off to the side if it kind of says that, like, okay, my willpower can have an effect on reality. Well, there's more rational explanations, you know, I'm sending out signals unconsciously, and talking about, these are my notes for this talk. They're not tattoos, not all of them. But anyway, Robert Merton was someone in the late 40s, 1949. He was a sociologist, and he coined the term self-fulfilling prophecy. And we can go different ways with this. So a self-fulfilling prophecy might be that I have a lucky rabbit's foot, and I've never been so popular in school or anything, but one day I decide, and I explain this to my 10-year-old son because it's something I think anybody who has a mind needs to know how it works with us. But anyway, this is the more rational explanation. I have a rabbit's foot, and I've never been very popular, but for some reason I'm going to put this rabbit's foot in my pocket. And by the way, I wouldn't use a rabbit's foot, I'm a vegan, but just for the sake of example. So then I go into school the next day, and I seem to walk just a little bit more confidently. I think, hey, I got this rabbit's foot, you know, things are going to work out great for me. I'm looking around, I'm like, hey, you know, you're going to like me. You over there, you're going to like me. And it's like, chances are when I have that attitude, like confidence, charisma, self-confidence, self-assured, then the kids kind of are attracted to me as being a friend or whatever, and I do end up more popular, and that would be a self-fulfilling prophecy, that I'm sending out lots of times unconscious signals through my body language and that I'm not totally aware of on a conscious level. Other people are picking up on it, and hey, boom, it happened. The thing about the research is there's less rational, I mean, we have to distinguish rational and logical maybe, but there's logical explanations that aren't quite so what we want to hear, because since, you know, the Renaissance and the Age of Reason, the 1500s, and science paved the way for our not living in the Dark Ages anymore, and the advances we have technologically, we don't want to hear about spirits and stuff. But anyway, Hussein, not Saddam Hussein, Shakmar Hossein is a modern researcher in psychology. He kind of did a paper on cyber psychology, how people interface with the internet. And one of the things he had to leave as confounding, which means that they don't really know why, in talking about whether there's a collective unconscious, which is, of course, another one of Jung's terms. And Jung kind of meant it that we're born with mythological tales deep in our unconscious that everybody on Earth has, which is why all the mythologies and all the religions say the same thing, and why people are so similar across so many different unconnected cultures. But there's another way that us modern people think of the collective unconscious, whether there is one or isn't one, is that it's a kind of ESP, that it's kind of a totality of human consciousness on an not so day-to-day awareness level that we communicate with each other. It's a collective, it's the Wiccan mystery of we're all one. And again, as far as research goes, is there such a thing? And lots of times we have to leave it as simply confounding, because we can't prove that there is one, but in things like Shakir Hussein, I can't even read my own writing, research on the internet, it turns out that people kind of click without contact. People will post similar things, people will connect to similar people, people will have the same things on their statuses, the same things on their mind, the same interests, And how it all happens, there's not really so many great rational explanations. It's kind of like those flocks of birds that, okay, they're flying out of a tree, and then they're all going this way, and then they're swooping down, and there's like 50 of them, and how are they all doing it at once? So that's something that in research-driven things is nice to add to Wicca, because it lets us know that we're not on the wrong track, we're not flakes, we're not all goofballs. I mean, I'm quite a goofball, but I like to think of myself as having my facts somewhat in order. So if there is a collective unconscious, that's another somewhat less rational explanation for how a spell might work, because this person with the lucky rabbit's foot is unconsciously influencing people at a distance, what in physics Einstein called freaky action at a distance that he didn't want to hear about. He wanted to have more of a rational explanation, but maybe there's this freaky action at a distance, and we're influencing someone with our belief in our lucky rabbit's foot on the other side of the country who is going to send us an opportunity. And by the way, don't follow any spam emails just because I said that. But it does happen, and we kind of know that there's something going on. And again, these are kind of quasi-rational explanations, but they're research-driven and they're logical, and we can have a firmer foundation. So with our self-fulfilling prophecy, if we take our rituals as self-fulfilling prophecies and as research-driven in our Wicca, it lends that kind of oomph in our mindset that if I think this is going to happen, if I think that I'm drawing 4 pentagrams around me and banishing unwanted influences, like in a ritual that is so common in Western ceremonial magic, the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, if I think that's happening, then I'm making it happen, and doesn't really have to be a question of, is this allowed? Is this allowed in my rational perspective? Because we lots of times have that conflict of, am I losing my mind? And I have it a lot, but I think it's more common even for people who might not say, am I losing my mind? They might say, is this rabbit's foot? Is this banishing ritual of the pentagram? Is this all kind of just some flaky new age stuff? And the thing is, if you really follow the research of Wicca, and just take the things in Wicca and just question them. Go to a reliable source that you can trust. And that's another thing I'll want to talk about in a different video, because this is already getting kind of long, but really look into your sources and make sure you're not just quoting some person like me who's babbling. Make sure you're quoting someone who has something called peer-reviewed, that other people in their discipline, like physics or psychology or medicine or whatever, have reviewed this person's research and published it in a journal. And Google Scholar is a great source for peer-reviewed journal articles, and there's other websites that are great, and plus databases that you may have to pay for, but it may actually be worth it, and it may pay you back 100-fold or more. But anyway, looking at your rituals as self-fulfilling prophecies, it kind of gives you that confidence. And the very fact that you have that confidence that it is working as a self-fulfilling prophecy, if you go about it that way, and by all means include spirituality, include the goddess and the spirits and the angels and everything, but know that just like the kids in the person's class who went to school with a lucky rabbit's foot, the spirits are going to be on your side. If you confidently trust that they're going to be on your side, the goddess is going to answer your prayer, like the quote, another one from Silver Ravenwolf, giving credit to sources, I know you'll do this for me, as I will, so mote it be. That's something to include in your spells, because if you're calling on the god Apollo, and can you make an opening for me in my career, but I don't know if you're gonna. I mean, it's not rude to say, I know you will do this for me, as I will, so mote it be. Unless you intend it in like some sort of controlling way. It's a deal. You're allowed to believe, and that's what all the religions teach. All the religions are called faiths for a reason. You're allowed to say that. You're allowed to say, I know you'll do this for me, as I will so motive be. Or for the Christian people, we might say, and thank you in advance for answering my prayer. Thank you in advance for answering my prayer. A lot of Christian people teach. Any other research you want to talk about? Oh, Pamela, I'll leave that one off for right now. But, oh, Martin Seberg, he wrote a really, really good article, for the Journal of Happiness Studies, and it is peer-reviewed, and it's just called New Age Advice: A Ticket to Happiness. And it's a really great article. You can find it online so easily. I'm sure you can find it without having to pay for a database. I just Googled it right now to make sure I had the author right. And it's just a great article on how much happier and fulfilled and all that good stuff we are in life as Wiccans, quote-unquote New Agers, and that the advice that we read and go by in our lives, pretty often it does make our lives a lot better. And whether the goddess is smiling on us, whether we do know the mysteries of the universe, we pretty much know anybody who really does follow the science of social sciences and stuff, that if they've gone into the research, we are a lot happier, and I think that says something in itself, and it says something really, really fun to think about. Okay, thank you for listening to my little thing, and I hope to really make an influence on everybody who watches my videos, because I'm just so great. Okay, bye. Blessed be. I can turn off my recorder.